guys, for coming back to another episode of the CEO and the Lobster. And this week we thought we would lift the curtain a bit and show you some of the gooey insides of Easy Crypto and what we see when we look at the crypto markets, the data that we have access to thanks to all of you and your crypto activity, buying and selling, and give you a bit of a cut of some of the demographics and trends that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Perceptions in crypto are a really, really interesting thing. As the perception of people in crypto, it was a really, really interesting experience to actually work at Easy Crypto and actually look at what our customer base is, to look at the demographics that we have, and to realize that, yeah, obviously it's true to a little bit, but it's only a little bit true. There is 80% of the crypto market, it's very much an 80-20 thing, aren't people like me. They're not straight white 20-something males that work in tech, have reasonably limited financial commitments, but are doing well and are just jumping into the ape coins, to the dog coins, to whatever it is. That's actually only a really small part of the market, but it's one we hear about quite a lot. And yeah, it's I don't know. I found it really fascinating. Janine, you've, as somebody who's been in the crypto space, what does the crypto market actually look like? What are the actuals of our customers?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Patrick, you are not the only customer demographic we have. It's not just all young white males. One of the things that I find very interesting, obviously, as a woman in crypto, is seeing how that gender skew and gender distribution actually looks in the real customer base. And this has definitely changed over time. When I started in crypto, it was very much a crypto bros ruled the roost, and that was sort of I'd walk into a room at a crypto event and I would be the only woman there. But things have changed a lot and there's so many women involved. And one of the things that I find really interesting about the gender data that we have, and side note on this, anyone who's a customer will know that we don't collect your gender as part of the sign up process. That's not information that we need. So the data that we're talking to here is from other sources, from things like Google Analytics and other data that gives us insight into our customer base using demographic tools that we aren't directly collecting ourselves. So as part of that, this is a bit of a binary data set. We only get given sort of male female splits on customers, nothing more nuanced than that. But we do see some really interesting trends in terms of the younger customer demographics, so sort of the 20s and into the early 30s, is heavily skewed towards male. So it's about 2/3, 1/3 male to female. But that skew really declines with age, and almost it gets to pretty much 50-50 by the time we have the customers sort of in their 50s and 60s. So anyone's guess as to why that is. Possibly younger males are more risk taking. That's a common trope. We could see it, to be to do with different levels of financial literacy, different levels of diversification interest between genders at different age groups. But I don't know, Patrick, what do you think? Is it just a young male risk taking that leads to the skew?
See, I actually think you're completely wrong about this. Well, I don't. The data, no. Really interesting trend that we actually see is our younger customers, and this does bridge the gender gap, tend to make smaller, more frequent purchases. We've got a product called Auto Buys, which just allows people to dollar cost average into the crypto sphere. It's a really, really interesting financial tool. Definitely look it up. Obviously, do your own research, figure out if it's right for you, but it's definitely a tool that a lot of our younger customers use. Compare that to our older customers, though. They seem to actually be more risk takers. We see their purchases as much larger, much, much larger. They're very, they move with purpose. They are very targeted and timed. They are know what they want, know when they want it. And it would be really, really interesting to break down the psychology of this. And we obviously can't look inside our customers' heads, but I'd almost say that this is because younger people are probably not in a position to take as many risks. They're wanting to just consistently build, to work into stuff. Whereas older people, and when I say older people, I'm not talking your grandparents, I'm
Yeah,
talking
how old are we talking here?
um, people that
As
are,
someone who DCAs or dollar cost averages, I'm a dollar cost averager and auto buy user myself, so I will put myself squarely in that younger demographic. Clearly, the data shows it, right?
as you're my boss, yeah, you're 100% correct there. No, we're talking about groups of people that are obviously in the middle to the later parts of their careers. They're definitely doing well for themselves. They're your bosses, they're your bosses' bosses. They've clearly had time to get some form of return on their investments they made when they were younger. They're starting to accrue that capital, that wealth that they're going to use in their retirement. And whether it is that capital or it's the excess capital that they've kind of made that they're wanting to more play around with, instead of buying a boat, some of them are buying Bitcoin these days. So it's a really, really interesting trend that the older generations actually tend to be more risk taking, which is just something you just don't really kind of think about. Um,
Oh, good work, us oldies. We're really getting amongst, and yeah.
when's my next performance review?
What about you mentioned Bitcoin, Patrick, but what is it? Is it Bitcoin that people are buying? What is the, how are we looking at the different types of coins that are being traded through the platform?
Yeah, so Easy Crypto sells more than just Bitcoin. I know, surprising. We actually sell 160 different coins, I think, at last count. And just a point on this, we actually have a coin vote page. Would highly recommend checking it out. All this data is just a representation of yourselves, the NZ crypto community. If there's a coin you want us to list and we can source it, but most importantly, source it safely, e.g., we're not going to put our customers at risk, we're more than happy to, list it on our platform, provided enough people want it. So yeah, definitely check it out. We very much see ourselves as a marketplace. If you guys want something in our community, on our website, definitely just ask for it and we should be able to provide it. That being said, we're not going to be here as much as I'd like for 4 or 5 hours talking about the 160 different coins that we offer. But we've kind of broken it into 4 main kind of groups. Bitcoin, Ethereum is definitely a big group in there, and probably one that's no surprise to anyone there. But there's also some other ones that are really, really interesting that I don't think most people would have thought about. Bitcoin, ETH, though. Janine, how has Bitcoin and ETH changed over the lifespan of Easy Crypto? What kind of patterns do we see there?
Yeah, so this is a super interesting one. Like for our analysis today, we've lumped Bitcoin and ETH together into one group. But when we started Easy Crypto, they were very, very different. Bitcoin was our top seller. It was sort of around 80% of our turnover every week was in Bitcoin, despite the fact that we sold Ethereum and sort of half a dozen other coins at that stage. Things have changed massively over the last 5 years or so. And while Bitcoin is still our top seller, it's no longer up in the 80% mark. It's more in the 20 to 30%. And sometimes ETH does overtake Bitcoin as the top seller on the platform. Happens rarely, but it does happen. A fun side note on that. One time we used to rank our coins by popularity. So the highest selling coin would be top on our list, which meant that occasionally Ethereum would overtake Bitcoin. And we had customers complain so strongly about that they were going to leave our service did we not put Bitcoin back to its proper place. So we now rank by market cap, which is a little more independent and doesn't get us in trouble as much. But back to the data patterns that we see at the moment. So putting Bitcoin and ETH together, we've done this because they have very similar patterns in terms of how people are trading with them, the buying and selling behavior. And what we see here is really solid buying activity with these, not as much sell activity, but still pretty stable between both the, the buy and sell ratios in those. And we see, if you have a look at the graph that we'll just bring up on screen now, we've got this one is quite high up near the top of the graph, which is indicating that we have a lot of unique customers will trade these coins. Almost every customer that we have has traded either Bitcoin or ETH, and usually often both. And then in terms of the number of transactions, there's a fair number of transactions going through these and a reasonable size of transaction value as well. So these are pretty solid coins that most people have in their portfolio. People are buying lots of transactions and at reasonable volumes as well. So the stablecoin grouping, which is the second group that we've got here on the graph, is quite distinctly different in terms of the activity and how people are buying and selling. So we have fewer customers transacting in stablecoins, but those transactions are much larger in size. And the reason for that, obviously a stablecoin, for anyone who doesn't know, is stable in value. It doesn't fluctuate like a Bitcoin or Ethereum does. It's pegged to an underlying asset such as the US dollar. And in the case of, for example, USDC, one USDC, which is the cryptocurrency, will always be worth $1. And so we see people, our hypothesis, again, you guys will have to tell us, but our hypothesis is that people are trading on different platforms, maybe buying and selling NFTs, getting involved in DeFi, doing crypto trading, and then bringing profits back to New Zealand dollars via this nice stable route, or alternatively going out into their trading platforms using stable coins.
Yeah, yeah. Stablecoins are a really, really interesting one because it's clearly a situation where the use case is driving adoption. It can't highlight enough how much having something that's really useful is going to provide value in a way that sometimes price movements up and down just can't. The third and fourth groups that we want to talk about are your popular altcoins, the number three. These are coins like TRX, Doge, XRP, ADA, BNB. We see some really, really interesting patterns here that kind of group them together. We see a really, really high number of unique customers, not quite as high as Bitcoin and ETH, but definitely a really high number of unique customers. But we see quite a small average transaction size. The transactions that they do make are pretty consistent and by a pretty decent subset of our, audience, but they are quite small. And it seems to be that with this kind of buying behavior, lots of people are moving into these either to diversify, to experiment, to try stuff out, but they're not wanting to bet the house on them. The interesting other side of this equation is with selling, it's almost non-existent.
I have to admit, I've only bought XRP, but that's because I lost my private keys to it. So, put me in the hodler camp.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, so really very few people are selling, and there could be a huge number of reasons why. It could be because people are buying them, they're using it, they're keeping it, or it could be because they're holding it, hoping that these things appreciate in value. The fourth group is one that's close to my heart. It's DeFi. And when I say DeFi, I don't mean just Ethereum. DeFi as in there's smart contracts, there's use cases, there's things on chain that are related to finance that people use these for. So obviously you've got I can always pronounce it, AAVE,
Aave.
Aave.
Well, at least I think it's Aave. You've just given me one of those moments of I've always pronounced it this way. Am I right? I think it's Aave. If
Correct
we're
us in the
wrong, someone
comments
tell us.
below, please. And then stuff like Comp or Phantom and synthetics. Then we've got some other ones in there, and again, this shows that this data we've taken from a reasonably broad time set, but we've got stuff like Theta, but really interestingly, Luna's in there as one of these things. And kind of the main characteristics that we see with these coins is there's a really low, unique number of customers that do it. But the customers that do it are very, very active. Not quite as active as the stables and Bitcoin and ETH, but then they make very large orders. And then the trends that we see with buying and selling don't stop existing where there is more buys, but they're smaller in size, and then sells, there's less sells, but they're bigger in size. They don't really hold as well here. Sells are slightly less in terms of quantity and slightly larger in size, but not nearly to the extent we see with everything else. And that we think is actually partly because of the use of stables here. People are clearly using these things as tools, getting in, getting out. But yeah, this is just what we see in the data. Would be really, really interested to hear what the community's thoughts are. This is just what we see as part of the New Zealand crypto community, but there might be things that we've missed. Let us know what's happening. Yeah, it's a really good time to be in crypto.
So hopefully that's useful, a bit of a peek behind the kimono and what we learned from you guys in your activity. Let us know what you think about hypotheses, our pronunciation of Aave, and anything else that you want to see on this channel in the future. And till next time, we'll see you in the comments.
Awesome. Thanks all. See ya.